I said, put the bunny back in the box. I'm Liam, this is Rob, and welcome to the Hey Guys podcast. In the second part of our Nic Cage season, we look back at 1997's wonderfully batshit Con Air, a ludicrous film with an equally ludicrous premise, a movie elevated by a host of great performances and held together by the superbly earnest and brilliantly named Cameron Poe. Might this actually be better than The Rock, and where does it rank on the list of all-time directorial debuts? I mean, it's not quite Orson Welles and Citizen Kane or Tarantino and Reservoir Dogs. I mean, it's not even Get Out for that matter, but I would argue it is right up there. And given the type of movie that this is, it seems almost insane that they gave this to the guy who had previously directed Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. I mean, who the hell gets Con Air as their first movie? This is insane.
It is insane. But also, if you want a legacy, he's not going to be the dude that did Con Air, is he? He's going to be the dude that did Never Gonna Give You Up, because that... He's going to be the dude that pretty much started the Rickroll. But
there is that, yeah.
It's a great film. But if you want to talk about straight away directors, and you want to talk about, like I said, directorial debut and this film being good, people probably didn't think he was a good director then, because I'm looking at his.
Well, I don't think people knew. I reckon if you asked 100 people who directed Con Air, I reckon most people would say Michael Bay. There's a reason for that, because this movie feels like a Michael Bay movie.
It does feel like a Michael Bay.
It's shot like a Michael Bay movie in many respects.
Walking away from explosions, things like that. It's all.
Nobody's like, oh yeah, that Simon West movie. Yeah. I didn't know. I was surprised it was a Simon West movie.
What I mean is, after Con Air, you think they'd be chucking action film after action film at him. The next film he gets is The General's Daughter. Then he gets Lara Croft Tomb Raider.
That was a pretty big hit, admittedly.
No,
I'm not saying it wasn't. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a big fan of Tomb Raider, but it was a bona fide hit.
Okay, I'll give you that. Then he gets like When a Stranger Calls, and a bunch of TV movies, TV series, and then he gets The Mechanic in 2011, Expendables 2.
Again, they're all fine. The one that stands out though is that the last one you mentioned there, because one of the things like rewatching this film, and I actually think I maybe enjoyed this film more than I ever have before. I haven't seen it for a while, but I had seen it quite a few times when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I was really, we're doing our Nick season of podcasts. And this was the one I was most concerned about. I was like, I'm not sure how Con Air is going to hold up, how I'm going to feel about it. I watched 20 minutes of it randomly, like a few years ago, and I was like, oh man, this is pretty rough. You have to watch it as a whole for it to work. You have to watch the whole movie. You have to let the tone and the absurdity of it all kind of wash over you. I enjoyed this much more than I was expecting, and a big part of that was the tone. I'm still not 100% sure just how in on the joke everyone is, but and it's one of those movies we've mentioned a whole bunch of times on the podcast. The Expendables is a movie that you and I should have loved, and we didn't.
No.
Because they didn't get the tone right, especially with the first one. The problem was it was too winky. It was too knowing. The best Expendables movie by a long way is the one directed by Simon West. And it's because it's the closest to getting the tone right, where it feels like an 80s movie with just enough, like Jean-Claude Van Damme being called Villain and stuff like that.
It wasn't anything to do with the tone of the movie. It was all to do with Van Damme.
He made a big part of it, but again, something we mentioned before, Jean-Claude Van Damme knew the tone that movie needed to be, and I think Simon West did, and I think it's something he nailed with this. As a 90s action film, it's just about self-aware enough, but at the same time, it never really lets on. Everybody is playing it everybody knows this idea is dumb as shit, but everybody, and it is an amazingly talented cast, they all just go, yeah, we're going to give our all to this. Yeah, even though it's dumb as shit, we're all in on it.
What you need for a 90s action film is a ludicrous premise to actually then be treated serious.
Exactly.
The ludicrous premise of, obviously, and we're doing Nic Cage, so you had The Rock. That's pretty ludicrous. People stealing this highly advanced poison gas and then they're going to take over the Alcatraz. Yeah. The only people that could save them then is a biochemist and an age.
Sure. And James Bond, maybe.
Bond, yeah. This one, you've got a plane full of prisoners, and you've got an arsenal. I still don't understand why you need grenade launchers and grenade launchers and fucking automatic machine guns for transporting prisoners. But okay, you've got that in the belly of your plane. Great, that's
Do they
fine.
have that in the belly of the plane, or do they have that at Lunar Airfield where they
No,
land?
it's in the plane. He
Because
says
I thought they weren't allowed to have like guns on
John
the plane.
Cusack says we have one gun on board. The pilot has the gun, but we have a small arsenal in the belly of the plane. And then
Yeah, of course.
when
Yeah,
he's on the phone, he's saying to the guys, "It's only a matter of time before they find the weapons hold." Like again, why are you arming prisoners just in case they ever take over the plane? Okay, that's fine. Again, ludicrous premise. It's all ludicrous, but it's done so. It's wink, wink at the camera, isn't it? It's just like you know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen. Let's just kind of leave enough kind of breadcrumbs for it to actually happen. And that is one of the things, like you say, with this movie. It never asks, "Does this make sense?" Only, "Can we do it?" Yeah,
that's the question all the time.
Speaking of ludicrous, like Chekhov's car. Do you know the trope Chekhov's gun?
Yeah.
Well, we got Chekhov's car, haven't we? You saw that car. He's Colin Meaney is talking about that car. Oh, look at my car. My car's great. You know what's going to happen to the point where it's going to be used somehow. But did you ever consider that it was going to be used to be flying behind a plane in the sky to the point where Cameron Poe says, "On any other day, that would seem strange."
I mean, they really do set that up. I mean, again, it's one of the low-key, ridiculous things. Like, could a DEA agent afford a 1967 Chevy Chevrolet convertible? I'm really not sure.
That dude is dirty.
He is very dirty. But that does lead to one of his great lines. "Sunsets are beautiful. Newborn babies are beautiful. This is fucking spectacular." It's like he spits out every line. And I think it's because he can see the people he's in that movie with.
Yeah.
And it's like there are so many people eager with all the potential in the world to just steal every single scene. And he's just like, Cole Meany as Malloy. That's his name, isn't it? Malloy. It's like, man, I'm a long way down the pecking order in this movie. This, it's completely understandable. So he just turns up to 11 in every single scene. And the stuff with him and John Cusack, while I'm still not convinced it really is required in the movie, it's great stuff. It's like, if you're going to... One takeaway from this movie is like, I'm amazed that there wasn't a spin-off between those two. Malloy and John Cusack's character. Because I would totally watch a spin-off. By the end, they're kind of like begrudgingly friends almost.
The reason why you wouldn't have gone on a spin-off is because Cusack hated this film. He's gone on record to say, "I hated filming this. The only reason I did it was so I could get my passion projects off the ground."
I wonder if they feel differently now. I mean, supposedly there was an interview with him a few years ago where he said he would happily do a Con Air 2, which has been kind of, talked about for years and years. Yeah. And I'm not sure if it's... I feel like, again, like ourselves, like your opinion changed on this film. In the 90s, this is a dumb action movie. In 2023, it's almost avant-garde in its just absurdity. And I wonder if he looks back and goes, actually, that's something quite special. This wasn't just another 90s action film. This is something completely unique. Or it could be down to the fact that John Cusack doesn't get his face on a lot of posters nowadays. He's doing a lot of straight-to-DVD work. So for his career, maybe he could do with a Con Air 2. I don't know. But supposedly John Malkovich felt the same.
I found a DVD that I actually bought, I purchased, of John Cusack. And it was John Cusack and Thomas Jane in a film called Drive Hard.
Oh, God, that sounds rough. No wonder he wants Con Air 2, man. And don't get me wrong, I love John Cusack. And you can see the director or the writer, I'm not sure if it was the director or the writer who actually picked him out, but the role was written with John Cusack in mind, in the same way I think it was for Steve Buscemi. Garland Green was written with him in mind. And you can see it up on the screen. This is such a John Cusack role. And he's fantastic in it. But then I think everyone's fantastic in this film. But as good as everyone else is, once again, I mean, there's a reason this is the Nic Cage season. It really is Nic Cage who ties it all together. He's we mentioned The Rock. The difference there is you could make an argument that it's maybe a Sean Connery movie. It's a Nic Cage movie too, but there's certainly, kind of balancing the weights. And I know John Malkovich is great as Cyrus the Virus and all that jazz. But yeah, this is 100% a John Cusack movie, a Nicolas Cage film. And he absolutely knocks it out of the park. Like from the very start of this film, you're like, oh yeah, this guy is a proper action star.
Let's talk about the start of the film, right? First of all, did you recognize the Army Ranger commander, the one who was given the the speech at the beginning. You never see his face; you just hear his voice right at the beginning.
No, I didn't know.
Powers Booth.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, see, everyone's in this film.
Everyone's in this fucking film. That's Powers Booth. Like, I've never actually picked up on that before.
No, only.
And then as I watch, I see at the beginning of the film, you have that idiot who deserved to die. I'm sorry. The fact that Cameron Poe took 10 years because what a bloody, he called himself, what was it? I'm a regular hound dog. And then I hate that line. Pussies like you are why we lost Vietnam. That dude's just sat at home crying under his bed during that probably. But I hate that. Why did everyone call her Trisha Poe?
I don't know. The only thing I really took from that opening sequence, well, it was almost there to kind of remind you that he is the ultimate good old boy. Like, and he really leans into it. The accent, the tone, everything, his sense of chivalry. You get just enough like that bit when he looks at them and she's like, "Oh, I thought you were going to become that guy again." You know, because he's so lovely and so like the perfect encapsulation of Southern Americana that they were just like, "Oh yeah, but you know, he's quite dangerous as well." Just to be clear. Thank
you for bringing that up. I was hoping the army would make that guy grow up. She's talking like she hasn't seen him in years, but it's been at least 9 months.
Yeah.
If she's knocked up.
Yeah, and that's. Yeah, if she's knocked up, it couldn't have been that goddamn long, could it? So
the way she's talking, I was hoping the army.
Yeah, you think it would be more like his prison sentence kind of thing, like he'd been gone for donkey's years. But yeah, he must have at least come back. Oh, maybe he's kind of come back on leave. He slipped away and then buggered off again. But I know what you mean.
She's acting like he went away as a prick, come back as a. But she would have seen the changes in him previously because he's come back to knock her up.
Yeah, but again, in this film, it doesn't matter. We're just off to the races, and straight away we're getting into that. Again, I mentioned the fact that this feels like a Michael Bay film. That opening sequence in particular, when they have the fight out in the rain, it really is shot like the start of The Rock. Obviously, it wasn't a kind of military infiltration, but that fight, it had like the flames in the background for no reason. It had the driving rain. You have the great action sequence. I'm pretty sure it's solely responsible for the myth that you can kill somebody by punching their nose up into their brain.
No, that's where I knew it from.
Oh yeah, of course, and they took. I should have known that because we did a Last Boy Scout podcast and we talked about that very fucking thing. But it is it's a cool action sequence, and straight away he's thrown in prison before you know it. It's like he shows up, he goes, "Yeah, I'm a lovely guy, but I've got a dark past. I get into a fight, I'm in prison," and that prison sequence, which starts the film, is a fucking masterpiece. It is a masterpiece of him laying in bed, of character development, the whole works. It's the worst prison in the world, and all he does is stay in his cell. He learns origami, he learns Spanish. He's such a good guy. It's absolutely absurd.
I had an issue with that. I knew this was going to happen. I had an issue with the prison sequence. It was the overture, the narration.
That's the best bit. Break out the fine china, chill the lemonade, tie yellow ribbon around the old tree.
I couldn't.
This boy is coming home to his ladies. Dude. Coming home forever. It's the best. If anything sums up this film,
sick.
Dude, if anything sums up the perfect tone that this movie captures, it's that sequence at the start of the film and those lines. The fact that Nicolas Cage can deliver those straight-faced is nothing short of a miracle. And I appreciate it didn't work for you, fair enough. When I was rewatching this film and the rest of the prison is on fire and he's delivering that line earnest as fuck about his toy. And it is that last line, coming home to his ladies, coming home forever. Like the little gap, I'm gonna fucking adore this film. I'm gonna adore this film, and I did, and it all started with that.
I did love this film. I loved watching it again, but I've never been a fan of that sequence of the narration of the old, like just talking over the whole prison.
It's so dumb. Like chill the lemonade. It's like, come on, man. Like the fact that somebody wrote that down in the script.
I know they're probably just trying to be funny because nobody talks like that anymore. Not even in the South.
That's the brilliance, though, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, are they trying to be funny? And I kept asking myself all the way through the film. I was like, they do know this is ridiculous, right? They do. And then I keep coming back and it's like, maybe they don't. And this is like, if ever, recently there's been all this talk of like crossovers between the Fast franchise and say Jurassic Park or something done like that. The best crossover would be Fast and Furious and Con Air. In terms of like capturing a tone. This is the closest thing to what Fast and Furious is nowadays, only it's like the best version of it, where it takes it up to the limit but doesn't quite go over into parodying itself as Fast and the Furious franchise has now. Like, you know, we mentioned before where the Fast franchise found its sweet spot for like 3 or 4 movies. It was somewhere between kind of 4 and 6, 4 and 7, where it was dumb, but it had one foot in reality. And I feel like this movie sits in that reality where if you had like Fast 5, for instance, and then Cameron Poe showed up, and make no mistake, Cameron Poe would totally fit into that world. His tone, his earnest nature, his love of his family, it all fits in with the Fast and Furious. And of course, that ship has sailed now, which is a bit of a shame. I would have loved to have seen Cameron Poe in Fast and Furious 5 or 6.
If you would have had any of the sequels, I don't think you would have had. I think Cameron Poe's journey begun and ended.
Like, I don't think this movie, just be clear, I don't think it needs a sequel at all.
But that's what I mean. But if it did get a sequel, it would follow, not even a spin-off, just a sequel, it would follow probably John Cusack. Because you had Cameron Poe, that was his journey. He's done his time. He wants to just, as you said, forever. He just wants to be with the girls now. He's not going to leave them. It's fine. You'd have John Cusack now. He's trying to... Con Air was a bit of a disaster. So now we'll have what? Con Bus or Con Boat or something like that.
That would work. But it'd have to be him and Malloy. You couldn't have just John Cusack being all loquacious and shit all the film. You need the Malloy factor to cut through all that and say something truly horrible and belligerent, because he is horrendously belligerent all movie, and it leads to that kind of comic bickering that they have.
Yeah.
So I would need to be Malloy and Cusack. We don't even say Cusack's like character name. Is it Detective Larkin? Is that his name?
Vince Larkin.
Vince Larkin. Yeah, I just call him Cusack and Malloy. I think that just sounds better to be honest. Although, as you were saying that, I was like, in terms of his journey, this movie really does feel, and it's a very lazy trope, but it does feel a little bit like Die Hard on a plane, because, you know, not only is he wearing the vest, but he's a good old boy. He's the wrong place at the wrong time, or the right guy at the wrong place, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. And it ends much in the same way that Die Hard ends, you know, with him and his girl. I know there's his daughter there and all that as well. But it's like, could you theoretically just have an array of movies where, you know, Cameron Poe is the right guy in the wrong place? I think they could have. Again, I don't want to see nearly 60-year-old Nicolas Cage doing this now. Again, that ship has sailed. But if you had said, you know, the year 99 and it's Cameron Poe at an airport or something, I'm like, yeah, fuck it. I'd go for that. But again, I think part of it is I just want to see Nicolas Cage playing Cameron Poe, because he's so... like right down to the memes, and it's all about those little touches, like the bit when he gets off the bus and he lets it's been dipped a million times. It's so perfect.
He's balding at the front. He's got it all down the back, and he's balding at the front. It's insane.
His hairline's been insane
even
for
to the point. When we talk about tropes and stuff, even to the point where the hero is overlooked. You've got, as you just said, Vince Larkin being loquacious as fuck in this film, and you've got him talking about all the other guys like. Ving Rhames is like a regular Geraldo interviewee. Billy Bedlam has played by Nick Chinland, and I want to talk about him in a second. But Billy Bedlam, he caught his wife cheating with somebody, so he drove 3 states to kill her family, her dog.
Oh, yeah, the full works.
Yeah, he's talking about all these, and then who's that dude on there? Oh, it's Cameron Poe. He's a parolee hitching a ride home. It's just like we overlook the hero. He's a nothing.
That is the thing, though. It does actually make sense to them so, because he really is a nobody as far as they're concerned. But again, it comes back to that question: why would you ever put him on that plane? Not only that, but he just so happens to be sitting next to his best friend, who on the same day is getting transferred to another airport. Give me a fucking break!
And the whole thing about the shot as well, like the whole build up to that thing, like they didn't give it to me last night. Would they due to give it to him last night? And they just forgot, so they'll give it to him. It's that whole build-up of just because we need to have some sort of
dilemma, threat,
Yeah. I mean, do you reckon poor Mike Kelty Williamson, he read that, oh, you're going to be Nic Cage's best friend, but you can't do anything. You're just going to sit in a seat and sweat for 90 minutes.
That's basically all he does. And he's just there. I think he's just someone for Nic Cage to bounce off. Yeah. Because otherwise, he needs someone else on that plane who knows who he is, that he's lying to Cyrus the Virus and all that. Somebody else kind of level-headed, basically a non-killer. So I think that's why he's there, to be honest. But there's a lot of things in this movie where they're just there to keep the plot moving. And when I say the plot, really what I mean is just keep the plane in the air, get us to Vegas. That's really it. And one of those, I never really noticed that I had no idea what was going on with Cusack's like little side plan. Because the film starts and, you get Cusack and it explains.
Side plan.
Well, no, John Cusack. So he's got, it really is his plan. Like the whole thing about Con Air, it's his deal, and he's working with the DEA. Obviously, want to get answers.
I thought you meant his plan as in the escape plan.
No. And they've got this whole thing with Sandino, and that the reason that they're putting the undercover cop on there is to have him sit next to Sandino because he'll talk to him because he doesn't talk under interrogation. And I was like, I can't remember anything about that. Like, I was like, I should really probably pay attention as to what they're actually trying to achieve here. And I realized it's like, it doesn't really matter. And by the time you get to Lunar Airfield and they're all waiting for Sandino, and you realize it's like, well, wait, like Cyrus is working with them as well for them all to get picked up. And I was like, I can't remember any of this. And then I was like, I vaguely remember there being a shootout with a bunch of like Mexican cartel guys, but I couldn't remember why they were there. And I was just like, it doesn't matter. It's just another excuse to have more guns, more explosions. And that's absolutely fine. Everything else in this film is absolutely incidental. The bunny is important.
The dumbest DEA agent ever.
They're all thick as shit. And none of them, I'd say the worst of the bunch, and I couldn't decide if he was the worst or actually the best, was the helicopter pilot. So you've got a bunch of terrible decisions from the DEA where they will not listen to John Cusack, despite the fact that he's obviously right. They put them on a helicopter chasing a plane. They eventually catch up with the Con Air.
Yeah.
And the big question is, are we going to shoot it down? And they're having a bit of a back and forth. The helicopter pilot is so goddamn keen to shoot down that plane. He's like, sir, it's got to be now. Sir, it has to be now. But then you see what happens in Las Vegas and you're like, he was absolutely right. They 100% should have shot down the plane because they sweep under the rug thousands of deaths. Like, how many innocent people died in Las Vegas at the end of this film? I'm guessing like 200-300. It reminds me of, remember the end of, this is a weird one, X-Men Apocalypse. Terrible movie, but at the end, Magneto must have literally killed millions of people. Yeah. And it gets completely swept under the rug. Like, oh, he's a good guy again. Oh, he's misunderstood. It's like, no, at the end of that film, he killed millions of people. And I appreciate that isn't millions, but John Cusack's decision to land the plane, to allow it to land in Las Vegas, leads to the death of hundreds, if not thousands, of innocent bystanders.
Where does Swamp Thing get the army helmet?
Oh, fuck knows.
When he says the strippers were going to land, baby, but crash, and then he puts an army helmet on his head. Where does he get that from?
Where does he get that from? It's the same to bring it back to the bunny. Where does he get the bunny from? They talk about it in the prison. Like, it makes sense. They're like, oh, why are you giving your daughter this bunny? It's like, well, what else was I going to give her? Like cigarettes or soap? So it's like, what? Like, in prison, you can get cigarettes, soap, or a bunny rabbit. Like, are those the only options? If you can get your hands on a bunny rabbit, sure, you could have bought something like an alternative gift. It's almost as if they're just hanging around in prison. But hey ho, it is what
right.
It is.
So I'm going to bring it up now because you mentioned it, the bunny, right? Mm-hmm, Why can you put the bunny back in the box? I sent you a picture the other day.
I get it now. Now.
So I sent you a picture the other day of the grandmother from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, chasing
young Bill and Ted through hell, basically.
Through hell. I cannot now unsee, and I'm going to show you a picture, and we'll share it on the social media.
No, you don't. You don't need to share with me. I know exactly what you mean now.
I can't unsee.
To explain, Rob's.
Go on.
No, because Rob sent me this picture, and it's the picture of the grandmother in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey running down the corridor in hell, and I was like, what the fuck is this about? And now as soon as he's talking about that, I know exactly what you mean, because bizarrely I thought the same thing, and I just forgot. Yeah. Because they're having a fight in a crawl space, which is about 4 foot high, and they have to run down it like spiders. It's the same fucking scene.
I can unsee, when you see Billy Bedlam run at him, I can unsee him looking like Bill's grandmother.
He totally does. He totally does. And it's odd because it's a really awkward fight sequence because they're so low and it's not brilliantly choreographed. But again, that earnest nature of this film, it has that Cameron Poe hero music, which sounds like something out of Top Gun, like, and it's like all this music's playing as they're kind of clumsily fighting each other in this tiny crawl space. It's the worst sequence in the whole film.
How, as well, some shuffling of feet is able to release a steam pipe that perfectly points 90 degrees up and is sharp enough to impale a human body.
Well, it's just, again, one of those questions there's no answer to because it's dumb as shit. It's like, if you go back to when they're getting on the plane, so Con Air, and unbelievably, as ridiculous as the premise is, it's actually based on a real thing. The writer went on Con Air. They traveled around prisoners. They went all over the country. Obviously, it wasn't quite as high profile as this. Like, you wouldn't get all of the most dangerous fucking criminals in all of the United States and put them all on the same plane. But unbelievably, Con Air is a real thing. But there's no way, even post 9/11, that when they're going to get on this plane, they can all keep metal pins under their skirt. Like, you wouldn't get onto a flight to Magaluf in 2023 with a metal pin stuck under your skin. But like the most dangerous prisoners in the world can get onto a plane in 1997. It's absolutely.
But did you see how they searched them?
It was so lazy. They just like give him a little, like the lamest of pat downs, basically.
Yeah.
Like, he's hid that under his skin. Realistically, he had just been keeping a knife down his pants. Nobody was checking down there.
Would you be able to do that? Put the pin all the way through your...
Yeah, all you would need is a bit of, like, if you've got, like, a bit of rough skin on your hand, like a callus anywhere, I think you could get a pin in there, especially if you're, like, a hardened criminal and it's, like, to get yourself... I would be a little bit more concerned with Dave Chappelle, like, swallowing a condom full of matches, to be honest. That doesn't seem very fun at all. And then bringing it back up.
That as well, that scene lasted uncomfortably too long.
Oh, with him choking up the condom.
Nobody questioned why he was gagging or pulling dental floss or whatever it was out of his mouth. Nobody questioned that. Nobody questioned then when he actually had, like, he had a monologue with Cochise. Cochise, if you make out of this, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he pulls the thing, squirts him down, then... Like, all of that, somebody would have gone,
what the fuck's going on here?
Yeah. Like, nobody... Yeah.
But and the whole time, I'm just thinking, it's like...
his line, help, the last Mohican's burning, man.
Well, that's the thing. Like, supposedly, Dave Chappelle, like, ad-libbed pretty much every line in this film. And I think for a lot of people, they thought, coming off, like, the Chappelle show and stuff like that, it's like, oh, this guy's going to be the next Eddie Murphy. I know, like, he had, like, a bit of a falling out with Hollywood and just fell off the map soon after this for quite a few years. But you watch this and you're like, how is he not a bigger... I'm not saying a bigger star because Dave Chappelle is absolutely huge nowadays, but how is he not a bigger movie star? Like, why is it when I think of Dave Chappelle, I still think of that fucking stoner film, Half-Baked. Half-Baked. Don't know about making a sequel to that. I'm not sure if Half-Baked is a sequel, but that's besides the point. But it's just like, how is that Dave Chappelle's most famous film is fucking Half-Baked?
The only thing I can think of Dave Chappelle is, well, two things. Either Prince... or you all got any of that crack?
Oh, well, that's the thing. Like, in terms of like how famous he is, it all comes back to the Chappelle show. And obviously nowadays it's his stand-up. They've become massive on Netflix and they're really good. But for a lot of people, the legacy stuff is the Chappelle show and the fact that those sketches, like the Rick James sketch, is still fantastic to this day. Yeah. But it's like, why didn't he have that bigger movie career? And you watch a film like this, and he's among some really big hitters in this film, and he plays his part. He is memorable in this film. Is it Pinball? It's Pinball, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, he comes in, in a big ensemble, leaves a mark. I'm not convinced he needed to die. Like, at the end of this film, wouldn't it be more interesting if he just kind of got away? Because he runs after the plane. I'm like, do you have to get back on the plane? He's dressed like an agent. There's a sandstorm. He could just kind of wander off, but instead he gets, stuck under the wheel like a clumsy motherfucker? I wasn't happy about the way Dave Chappelle went out, because I was like, I wouldn't mind seeing a Pinball sequel as well. Like, if you're going to do spin-offs, do a Pinball spin-off, but he's dead, so you can't.
One of those things, isn't it? It's how do we get a message to Vince Larkin? That was the only thing they were thinking of when they were writing it. So we've talked about, we've talked about a couple of the prisoners now. I had a question for you, right? Who's the worst?
What, the worst is in actually...
Not in their crimes. Watching this film, who do you think is the worst prisoner? Like,
well, I mean, you got Danny Trejo, isn't it? Is Johnny 23? Like, it has to be.
Such a greasy, horrible man in this film.
Well, it is. It's just like, it's the worst crime, though, isn't it? And the thing is, as well, he's
his past crimes, his 23, but it's the fact he's still trying to do that crime.
Yeah,
now.
that's what I mean. That's the difference. It's like, obviously you hear these terrible things that Cyrus the Virus has done, but he's like, I wouldn't go as far as say likable, but he's delivering all these fantastic lines. John Malkovich is knocking out the park. Some of the other characters are flat out likable. And then you've just got Danny Trejo as Johnny 23, and it's like, yeah, okay, it's in your name, we get it, you like to rape. But he likes to rape like too much. Like it's just his whole character arc is about rape. And in that film, it's like all he's trying to do is rape the prison officer. And he's like,
Bishop.
oh God, Bishop. And like, dude, just fucking give it a break. Yeah, he's and he's on the plane with Garland Green, who, Steve Buscemi, who is fantastic in this film, goes on about how he wore a girl's head as a hat for 2 states. That's pretty fucking hardcore. But by the end of it, you're kind of happy that he gets away. And it's odd that they play it that way. Like, they make it clear that you should be happy that Garland Green gets away. And I think they do it purely on the fact that he doesn't kill that dirty poor girl in Luna Airfield at the worst trailer park ever. Be clear, I can't believe there's a trailer park that filthy. That little girl is covered in dirt. She's so poor. Like they play it up to such a ridiculous degree.
Luna Airfield apparently is a working airfield, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You had one pilot who landed and then ran away into the desert. You had the old dude who was hiding under the truck.
Yeah, I'm not sure he needed to be there, but sure, yeah.
The radio operator who had his throat slit. And then the girl in the trailer park next door to the airfield. Where's everybody else? Where's her parents?
God knows. But then that whole sequence in a movie of truly ridiculous sequences, I think the stuff at Lunar Airfield, whatever you want to call it, is maybe the dumbest of the bunch. And the biggest one, and it's completely self-imposed, is when they give themselves approximately 11 to 12 minutes until the cops show up, basically. In those 12 minutes, so much happens. Yes. It's fucking insane. Like, they have the shootout with the cartel. The bit where Nicolas Cage almost, like, he has maybe one of, we talk, you see it now, it becomes a trope, doesn't it? That the idea of, like, walking away from an explosion. Nicolas Cage is running away from an explosion when he's in the explosion. His face doesn't change. Nope. Nobody has ever been more chill about an impending explosion than Nicolas Cage, as he just casually runs away from the fire and jumps through a window. Doesn't even break a sweat. I
think I mentioned it before. Whenever I see those, I always think of the Lonely Island's cool guys always walk away from explosions.
Yeah.
Like,
well, he runs, but he runs really chill. Yeah.
But then when they kill I was going to say San Francisco. Francisco? Is that his name?
Sandino.
When he kills Sandino, oh, what a line. Sayonara.
Oh, it's a terrible line. But then, I would say, like, in those 10 to 12 minutes, they pull a plane out of the sand, and it, again, does that plane need to be that plane? It's a ridiculous plane. So they have to pull that giant plane out of the sand. They kill a Mexican cartel. They blow up a petrol station. They make a plan for the incoming army, including miniatures and a full understanding of the surrounding area. And they still have time to watch them like show up and get into position. It's the longest 10 minutes in cinema history.
I had that.
And why don't they just say it's going to be 20 minutes? I think because they wanted to do it in quote unquote real time. Yeah. But the amount that they do, it's just, it would take days to do all that stuff.
I had that written down, right? I wrote, is Lerner Airfield that famous that everybody in the world knows that that's called the Boneyard?
Oh, everyone knows. Everyone knows, of course.
The prisoners knew it was called the Boneyard. The John Cusack, keep calling it Larkin, and his team knew it was the Everybody, even like when the dude the old man hiding under the truck. The only reason he was there was to direct Nic Cage to the Boneyard as well.
Exactly. It's almost absurd that he's there and under the car. I mean, he's quite fun in his little sequence, but yeah, it's just to get him from A to B, basically. So he knows where he's going to find the needle.
I know.
Oh my God. But then just to get to this point is almost a miracle. It's like their plan. Do you know how much has to go right/wrong for the Con Air escape to work? I mean, they keep going on about like the sandstorm being, oh, well, that's going to work out for us. No, the sandstorm is absolutely essential for your plan to have any chance of work. If the sandstorm isn't there, that plan just flat out doesn't work. Yeah. So it's just like, yeah, it's a goddamn miracle. But how incompetent does everyone have to be for that plan to work. Everyone's such a dumbass in this film when they need to be, but we don't care because it's just super fun. So
where's Cyrus Grisham as well? Speaking of the plan, getting all the materials to make basically a suitcase nuke in his
well, there's suitcase nuke, but I don't even know how the wall thing worked. Like when they started chipping away, and he's got like a fake wall. I'm like, how the fuck did he make that? I have no idea. All I was thinking was like, is it a Shawshank Redemption style thing where you used to have a poster there? But I was like, I don't know, man, this thing's really close to the floor. If there was a poster there, somebody's going to be like, that's pretty fucking weird. Especially for Cyrus the Virus, who I'm pretty sure they're not going to be lax about, given his reputation.
He's been locked up in prison, as well as Sandino, who I'm assuming they're passing notes through a lawyer.
Yeah.
But at some point on record, because all their visits have to be recorded, at some point they're going to have to go, right, so get a photo of the Last Supper and take the eyes out. And then what you need to do with that is move it along. Like, that seems too not to have been discussed at some point. If you gave me a photo of the Last Supper with the eyes still in, and then I'd have to go, there's a letter, and there's, what do I do here?
What do I do here? Well, luckily we've got John Cusack to figure this all out. But again, I think the reason we let that slide is because that part of the story is the bit we just don't give a shit about. The whole Sandino thing, like I said, it's all just incidental. It's to keep the plot moving. And a big part of that is the fact, like, I don't want to be hard, but Jesse Borrego as Sandino, he's just not interesting enough. Like, you needed a bigger character in that role to make you care about that part of the narrative.
I don't think you were ever meant to care about.
But it never lands, because you're just like, his character. And it's easily done because there's so many big performances in this film. His performance just kind of falls by the wayside. You need someone coming in. It's like, well, why he doesn't seem like badass enough. Like, if you're like the head of this like Mexican cartel, and Cyrus the Virus's plan is kind of completely depending on what you do, I just feel like his character needs to be a bit more memorable, and he just kind of falls by the wayside. And I think while he falls by the wayside, that whole part of the narrative just gets pushed to the side, and it's just so easy to forget. And I'm talking about that from personal experience. Like I said, it wasn't so I was really paying attention this time. I was just like, I can't even remember this being a thing. I kind of vaguely remember him being in the film, but I couldn't have explained before I'd rewatched it why he's in there. And even now, having done so, I'm like, I don't care. It's essential. Like, the movie does need just enough for it to make sense to get from A to B, but I just don't give a shit about it. And a part of it is his character's just, simply put, not interesting enough, sadly. But like you said, dumb people, sorry, just because you mentioned in the cell, like, we talked about in The Rock, like potentially smart people doing dumb things. They find a box in Cyrus the Virus's cell, and it says, "Do not open." You've got John Cusack, clearly the smartest man in the room, saying, "Do not touch anything." They don't even ask any questions. He sits down and immediately goes, "Do you know what I'm doing? I'm opening this fucking box." Of course you blow it up. If anyone deserved to die, it was that fucking moron. If the box says "Do not open," if John Cusack says "Do not open it," how about, I don't know, don't fucking open it, you dumbass? But
yeah, the continuity of that, or the consistency, kind of upset me a little bit as well. Because when John Cusack ran out of the room and said, "Don't touch anything," the "Do not open" box was on the floor.
Yeah.
But then when you go back, it's on the bed next to the dude.
This is the different. This is how I watch movies and how Rob watches movies. I'm like, who is this idiot? Why would he possibly do that? And Rob's like, wait a minute, that was on the floor a minute ago. That was on the floor. Is nobody watching this on a technical level? Why is it suddenly on the chair? It's ridiculous.
Well, come on, like, I mean,
that's the thing that bothers you.
I remember watching a film called Mean Guns. Right.
Of course you do, and of course you did.
Right. It was Mario Van Peebles, Highlander, what was his name? Christopher Lambert. And
Christopher Lambert?
Yeah.
I didn't know you're from the south of France.
Christopher Lambert and Butler.
Yeah, there we go.
Who was the other dude in it? Fucking hell. The comedian, he did that Rescue Me show, Dennis Leary.
And it's actually not a bad cast in fairness.
There's a scene where you had a Mexican standoff and they're holding guns at each other, right? And the camera's going around them in a 360. So when the camera's on them, at one point, they're holding, I don't know, like 9mm guns at each other, like just like handguns. And then when the camera just moves a little bit, all of a sudden they're holding revolvers. Then it moves around again, they're holding 9mm guns. And it moves around again, they're holding revolvers. And so they've done this scene 2 or 3 times. And the prop master, like, just choose any gun you want.
Just have whatever you want. It's like, wait, what gun was I holding when we did the scene? I don't know, a handgun? Yeah, but there's like 8 different handguns here. Oh, dude, I don't know. This is a straight to DVD affair. I'm not getting paid enough. Just pick up a fucking handgun, yeah? Okay, fair enough. Jesus. You would think, getting it wrong once is one thing. To get it wrong like 3 or 4 times in the same shot is ridiculous.
The director, like, we did this scene yesterday. Weren't they holding different? Like, it's...
Yeah. You just think nobody was... Unsurprisingly, I don't think these guys were maybe committed. What was the name of the movie?
Mean Guns.
Mean Guns.
I'm sure
it's even guns. In fairness, guns are in the title. You think they might have got that right? I assume shooting's a pretty important part of the movie.
I had a thing for Mario Van Peebles. I remember watching. Did you ever see a film called Solo?
No. What? I assume you don't mean Solo, a Star Wars story, of course.
No. I mean where Mario Van Peebles played an android.
Yeah.
That had to help rescue a Mexican village, and the guy that built him was Adrian Brody.
I always find it amazing. Like, you say these films, I've never heard of them. I assume most people haven't. I'm like, these are ludicrous straight to DVD affair. I have no, you tell me the premise, I'm like, this is so dumb. And then you say who's in it, and then all of a sudden my ears prick up. I'm like, Adrian Brody's in this. You forget that these guys, they have peaks and troughs in their careers. Like, it's like they're really hot for a few years. And then, like John Cusack, like we were mentioning, it's like, for a few years he was really hot and then suddenly things calm down and, they've still got to do a job. They've still got to pay the bills. So they'll suddenly do that straight to DVD fare, the stuff which you watch and nobody else watches. But, somebody's watching it alongside you because it makes enough money. But you forget that these guys go and slum it for a few years. Yeah. So you get these like legitimately great actors in like really bullshit straight to DVD fare. But we mentioned before, and we should do a podcast this one day. Was it Empire Magazine used to do it? Like the Vault, where they would watch all these like dodgy B movies and then pick out the best ones. There's got to be, and you'll know better than most, good stuff in there. But my God, a hero like yourself has to be willing to wade through the shit to find the gold. And God bless you for doing it.
Apologies. It wasn't Mean Guns. Mean Guns was a Christopher Lambert film, but that was with Ice-T. The film I'm talking about was called Gunman.
I'm sure somebody was just screaming at their podcast. Like, he's mixed up. He's mixed up with Gunman, the fucking idiot.
So Gunman was the 3 I just said: Christopher Lambert, Mario Van Peebles, Dennis Leary, Patrick Stewart, and Kadeem Hardison.
God damn, man. That does sound interesting. Although it sounds so interesting, I can't remember what the fuck we were talking about now.
We're talking about the location of the Do Not Open box.
Oh, of course, Jesus Christ.
Although when that blew up as well, it was the door that flew.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
But when Vince
he left the room,
it's a propeller.
Is it a propeller?
It's not a door. It's tiny.
Oh, maybe. I just assumed it was a bit of the door. Because I know you have the propeller sequence later on when it kind of goes through the plane.
It looked like a thin shaft of metal and then the big circle.
Maybe it'd be like an air conditioning unit or something like that. I don't know. Very strange.
The door that flew after him.
So, there are, again, a number of strange things that happen in this film. But one of the things, and I think it doesn't get mentioned enough, and this is in reference to the whole Beige Volvo trilogy, is the fact that they all brilliantly get the titles of the movies into the movies themselves. Welcome to Con Air, Welcome to the Rock, Welcome to Face Off. Okay, the last one doesn't work. But there is legitimately, they say, Welcome to Con Air, Welcome to the Rock. And famously, there is the Face Off line in Face Off, which is actually maybe the best of the bunch. But the fact that all 3 of those films the fact that all 3 of them get the titles into the movies themselves just speaks to the underlying quality that has gone into these films.
I think what we need to do is, I know we're like 114 episodes in now, and we always bring up we need to point out from now on if they get the title of the film into the film.
Yeah, that is something worth mentioning. And these, the only thing is, I wonder if we've peaked with these. Welcome to Con Air, Welcome to the Rock. I'm going to take his face.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got to think that there's got to be some cool little ways about how they do it.
Yeah, I guess like the enjoyable thing is that it'll be quite sneaky. In this, it feels like, they I wonder if this is the record for the most uses of the title in a movie. It feels like Con Air gets sent about 72 times. Like I'm not sure. Like I wonder if somebody's like made a list online of like the title being used that many times in the film. I think Con Air's got to be near the top, man. Like they use it so because usually when we have this conversation, it's like they've snuck the title into the film, and that's what they do with Face Off, don't they? It's like it really feels like when it's quite forced, but it's brilliant all the same. Some of the films, it's quite sneaky. It's like, oh, I see what you're doing there. In this, they're like, no, we're going to say Con Air about 82 times, and I don't. Maybe it's all the better for it. I don't know, but. We've mentioned just how ridiculous this movie is on a number of occasions because it is. And that's never more true than in the final sequence when they do eventually land in Las Vegas. We already mentioned the fact that clearly that would have led to the deaths of thousands of people. But it's a movie which is already teetering around the 10 or 11 mark and then just pumps everything up to 12 or 13. They really do go quite insane. The only issue I have with this last sequence is that other than John Cusack's suit, it might be the only thing that ages this movie because so much of it is set in prisons. And when you watch it in HD nowadays, as I'm sure most people would, it looks fantastic, this film. But it's very, and even, we mentioned the fact Malloy's car, it's like a 67 Chevrolet convertible. Everything just looks like it could have, like this film for the most part looks like it could have been made yesterday.
Yeah.
But as I said, the only two giveaways are John Cusack's suit, which is distinctly 90s. And while I can imagine a lot of the budget went into that, the big set piece at the end of the film, some of the stuff with the plane does look a little bit aged now. I know it's got great stuff in there. Like they blew up a casino, like literally for this film. It was due to be demolished anyway.
Yeah.
And then they were just like, well, we'll just fly a plane into it and have it explode. So there's great stuff in it. But they keep right to the end, just keep notching up the insanity. And I think it really does peak in the way that Cyrus the Virus dies. Like, I'm not sure many movies can get away with a death as elaborate as Cyrus the Virus, he's up on the top of a fire engine for no apparent reason. Doesn't need to be on there.
The ladder.
So he gets stuck on, he's handcuffed. He gets stuck on the ladder. Cameron Poe somehow, with superhuman strength, sticks a wooden stick through his leg all the way through. Do you know how fucking strong you would have to be to do that? That's never happened in a million years. He then gets thrown through a building, lands on the other side, for some odd reason falls onto a conveyor belt attached to a rock smasher in the middle of Las Vegas, completely unmanned, but very much on in the evening, only for his head to get completely demolished.
That rock smasher seems to be the other side of the concourse that he crashes through.
Yeah, it just wouldn't be there.
The main road, you've got the concourses connecting two casinos or two whatever.
Yeah.
Then exactly the other side of that, then it's the same as T2, right? Where right at the end,
of the road,
highway, you had the liquid melting forge plant, whatever that was. It's the same here. Just at the end of the strip, we just got the rock smashing. Like we've got the quarry.
Yeah, well, because that's a great point with T2. Like the road just ends in the smelting plant, or whatever you want to call it. It's like it's not off to the side of the road. It's literally the end of the road just goes directly into it. And it's the same here. Like you say, you've got the concourse. What the concourse would usually do is because it's going over a street, which they're driving down, all makes sense. So when he smashes through that, do you know what he should land on? The street. Not on a magically placed rock smasher in the middle of Las Vegas.
You know what?
And again, like we said at the top of the podcast, they never ask, does this make sense? Only can we do it? And they're like, we have a rock smasher. We can do it. Write it down, get it shot. This is fucking happening. Surely John Malkovich, who's famously had a lot of issues with this film, he must have read the script for the end of that and gone, oh, come on, guys. Come on. That's so dumb. Sorry,
do you know what upset me? I could forgive the fact that there's a rock smasher, right? Because we've forgiven a lot. Like I said, T2, we forgive.
You have to forgive a lot.
Yeah. But I can't forgive the sheer force of crashing through it and he's handcuffed. Didn't rip his arm off or his hand off or keep the hand. All of a sudden, he was de-handcuffed.
And again, in a movie where it makes a precedence for what would happen if there's too much pressure when your handcuffs are. Johnny 23 his arms get ripped off because he's handcuffed when the plane goes down.
What?
So they're already telling you these handcuffs are fucking pretty legit. If anything, they go to the two extremes. The one extreme is, which again, I'm pretty sure is quite ridiculous, your arms would literally get ripped off. To the other one, that the fucking handcuffs would magically disintegrate. It's like, reality is somewhere in the middle, but I'm not convinced you can do both.
What a clean rip as well, mind.
So clean, so clean.
That was so, like, you would expect to see, I don't know, jagged bits of flesh or something.
And how much blood?
Yeah.
If you had both of your arms ripped off in one moment, there would just be blood everywhere. But this is one of those magic films where there's hardly any blood.
He was still vertical. They carried him away. Like, oh yeah, this guy definitely dead. They carried him away, and his arm's still hanging there. He was
which, like I said, in and of itself, yes, it's dumb, but it's fun, and we're all happy because Johnny 23 is the worst. But then, like you said, in the same movie, 2 minutes, what feels like 2 minutes later, you've got another dude handcuffed, and he just kind of the handcuffs just disappear.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't be the biggest problem. The biggest problem should be the fucking rock breaker, because it has no business being there. Both in terms of why would you have one there, and two, also there should be a road there. It just shouldn't be a quarry.
That was convenient as well, wasn't it, Mike? When, who was it, Diamond Dog, Swamp Thing, and Cyrus the Virus managed to get out of the belly of the plane, they managed to open the hatch right onto a fire engine. I mean, how convenient is that?
That is very convenient, I suppose.
You're driving your fire engine to a plane that's just crashed into the strip, crashed into a casino, and you thought, I know where I'm going to park it, right under the volatile, maybe going to explode plane.
Oh my God, so many people died there. So many people died. Right, that's how mental this film is, that we basically got to the end of this movie, almost the end of the podcast in terms of just casually talking about the film, and we've not even talked about Garland Green. Oh, we've hardly talked about him. Like Steve Buscemi, the way he gets carted out. The only thing I can think is this is a few years after Silence of the Lambs, and they're basically just trying to one-up Silence of the Lambs. So like, that's how can we make it so Garland Green, even on this plane of horrible people, how can we make it clear he is easily the most horrible? Beyond the fact that they make other than Cyrus, everyone's terrified of him. Yeah. They have him like with a collar, with a stick on it. I just don't think that exists in real life, but
I do think as well that whole character is a nothing character, because it doesn't, aside from them acting like they're scared of him, and then he like, there's no cure for my kind of sick, all that stuff. It doesn't really do much.
I've got it in my notes here. I was like, is he needed in the movie, or did they just want Buscemi in it? And the answer is definitely they just wanted Buscemi in it. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, he had some great lines. Like, his definition of irony is fantastic. A group of idiots on a plane dancing to a song made famous by a band that died in a plane crash. It's like, he has all these great lines, and he does what he needs to do because you do remember him, and he is fantastic. Is he needed, though? Like, from a narrative standpoint, absolutely not. The film is no different if Garland Green's not in it. Like you said, he's almost in his own little movie, to the point where they just remind you at the end when he's like winning at the table in Vegas. It's just like, oh yeah, Garland Green's back. It's like, wait a minute, isn't he just like the worst serial killer in the world, and we're all suddenly cheering for him because he didn't kill that little girl at Lunar Airfield? I don't know.
Oh. Do you know what? I think they missed a trick for Face Off as well. Not bringing back Brendan Kelly.
Of all the things.
So randomly, I didn't actually notice this, and I've seen these films, and I have seen them in order as well of like the release date before. I never know. We talked about him last week when he called Sean Connery, "You English prick, did I ever tell you my wife was Irish?" He was in this one as well. He was Curly. Shut the fuck up, Curly.
Yeah, there's that is the thing, because like most of the characters on the plane are so big. There's like 3 or 4 other ones who hardly exist.
Yeah,
there's like some other dude who shouts one thing. Like, I think they're at Lunar Airfield, and he warns people that I don't know. He shouts something, and he's just like, I forgot he was alive. I thought he was just one of the dudes that died. Everyone else just falls by the wayside.
But what I mean is, they should have brought him back for like a nothing, maybe to be part of Nick Cassavetes' crew in Face Off. Just to have him.
It's a shame that he didn't do the full trilogy, I suppose. It is what it is. The one thing I have to mention before we move on, and it really is the end of this film, I totally forgot about the "you have been watching" credit sequence at the end. It's not quite Predator, But I totally forgot that they went through the whole cast and everyone's like looking quite happy. And it's like, you have been watching Nicolas Cage as Cameron Poe. So dumb.
I mean, they don't turn him, aside from Colomini, who does smile, do they turn and smile at
No. I think you're just thinking of Predator again. Nothing's as mental as Predator closing credits. Although that does remind me that Cage does have the best 90s action movie names. Like Cameron Poe, Stanley Goodspeed, and Castor Troy. Fuck me, those are some amazing names. They're such great names, which kind of gives away what we're doing next week, of course. But we should move on anyway. Do you have anything else to add before we get into a favorite sequence?
I mean, only the fact the whole daughter, the wife thing and things like that.
Oh, see, that's the thing. We haven't even mentioned it, and there's a good reason. She's got nothing to work with that character. She's the same character at the end. She just always looks slightly afraid and confused, and that goes right through to the end credits. It's an aggressively male movie.
At the beginning as well, she looks like she doesn't want to see Cameron.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't. And Rachel Cotton, is that her name? As Guard Bishop? Oh, Monica. No, as Guard Bishop. Sorry.
Oh, Guard Bishop. Sorry. Yeah, I was on about Monica.
No. I was just saying, like, she is at least the one kind of female in the entire movie with a little bit of agency. She was from Total Recall, wasn't she? That's the other thing I remember her from. She has at least something to do, but other than her, this is maybe one of the most aggressively male movies of all time. And it's a shame that his wife, Monica Potter, is Trisha Poe. Like you said, the fact that they keep having to say her whole name all the way through the film.
Oh,
she really has nothing to do. It's a bit of a shame. So, but.
Hey, got a game for you. You just mentioned her, Rachel Cotton, right? Because you said the only thing you can remember from is Total Recall. Mm-hmm. And let's do the known for.
What, Rachel Cotton?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember.
You'll be surprised, to be fair.
Go for it.
So obviously Total Recall and Con Air.
Yeah, 100%.
Falling Down, which we have to do on this podcast.
Oh, yeah. Totally forgot she was in that.
And Man on Fire.
Oh, I completely forgot she was in Man on Fire.
Yeah.
But then I can't really remember anything from Man on Fire other than the bomb up the butt sequence. That's what I really remember from Man on Fire.
To remember, yeah.
Well, it's a great sequence, and fucking Denzel is absolutely slaying in that sequence. He's so good. Of all the people to be stuck with when you've got a bomb up your ass, it's just Denzel Washington, Jesus Christ. But yeah, I'm not convinced. I don't know. Do I want to go back and watch Man on Fire? I'm not sure if I do.
I don't want to watch Man on Fire, but
it's a Tony Scott film, right?
Man on Fire was, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need to go back and watch Man on Fire, but I'd like to go back and watch Falling Down.
Yeah. I'd be more inclined to watch that for sure. But anyway, let's just get to let's pull the plaster off. You know what my favorite sequence is. I've already told you it's the jail sequence. Break out the flat china, chill the lemonade, tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. Because this boy's coming home to his ladies. Coming home forever.
You think he'd give up on her as well, don't you? But he does that because he's doing it when he's talking to nobody in the boneyard. Well, baby, it ain't exactly my ties and lemonade out there.
Oh, dude, his drawl is spectacular. Supposedly, he went down to Alabama to kind of pick it up properly, and I'm not sure how the people of Alabama feel about his accent, but I know how I feel about his accent. I fucking love it, absolutely love it. So yeah, there are some great sequences in this film, great scenes. But that is my favorite because I really feel like it sets up the tone for the whole movie, really sets up, Nicolas Cage's performance as Cameron Poe. So, yeah, I'm going with the jail sequence at the end of the film, probably your least favorite sequence of the whole film.
I mean, to be fair, my favorite sequence is the radio chat between Larkin and Cyrus. Because you have the antagonistic, they're both playing a little bit of mental chess at that point, where you've got you've got Cyrus going, right, your Bulls were onto us at Lerner Airfield. How? Yeah. Then you've got Colomini nearly blowing the fucking game away.
Yeah, of course.
Vince Larkin saying, one of the guards faked a heart attack. We have to remove his strings, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And all in it. And then you got Cyrus then going, I'm so sorry about your agents. And then them going nuts. And then you got that song at the end, Nothing Makes Me Sad, when the agent lost his bladder in the air. Yeah, I like that little antagonistic thing, and they know they're not going to get to each other or be able to figure. But all in the meantime, then you've got just Poe just in the background, just trying to be like, oh, I'm one of you guys. I want to know what's going on. I want my freedom too. And it's like,
Yeah. Well, that kind of speaks to the film that this maybe could have been, the film that they're the two that kind of stand out most clearly in terms of like odd choices, not odd choices, but they're not your kind of obvious 90s action guys, of John Cusack and John Malkovich. And those two, it is nice that at least they had that little back and forth, because they're arguably maybe the two best actors out there. You can make an argument for Nic Cage, depending on how you feel and what kind of performance he decides to put in this week. But those two are obviously, a different tier of actor in many respects. Again, Steve Buscemi, but he's not really interacting with anyone. But yeah, it's a very different sequence, which kind of stands out to the rest of the film. But yeah, I mean, personally, if you're really going to capture the tone of this movie, I still think it's the opening sequence in the jail, for sure. I don't think the sequence you picked is representative of this movie at all. I think that fucking sequence in the jail absolutely is.
I mean, agree to disagree at this point.
Of course. Loves and hates, love and surprisingly, Cage. Number 2, the ensemble cast, which is unbelievable. And 3, the genuinely ludicrous premise pushed to the very limit of sense and believability. One which, again, as we already mentioned, is unreally based on a real thing. I still can't believe Con Air actually exists, but
yeah, that actually exists. But do you reckon that they have a belly full of?
No, of course. Do they have a big ass plane with Con Air written on the side? Do they put everyday guys who are going home on the same plane as all these lunatics? Do they have anything even remotely close to a Garland Green? Of course they don't. I'm still happy that it is a real thing, because that came as a genuine surprise. But this, regardless of whether it's based on a real thing, they took that idea and just pushed it, as I said, to the very, very limit of believability. And they just about get away with it in this film simply because it's got so much talent involved. And that's the other thing. It comes back to that Simon Wood thing. Like, it's not just a massive Jerry Bruckheimer movie. It's a massive Jerry Bruckheimer movie with this unbelievably massive cast of super talented people. And they're like, oh, well, who are we going to get to direct this fucking monster of a, summer blockbuster? Oh, Simon West. The Rick Astley guy? What the fuck? I still, as crazy as some of the stuff is in this film, I still find that the most insane thing of all is that Simon Wood was directing it as his directorial debut.
Do you know why, though, I reckon?
I have no idea.
They probably blew all their budget on getting all this ensemble cast.
Maybe.
I thought, you know what? We need somebody who will work for scale.
Yeah, we need someone to go cheap, man. We've got like 10 grand left for a director. You've got 10. Dude, do you know how much we're planning on blowing up here? It's going to have to be fucking Simon Wood, I guess. Anyway, loves for you, sir?
Cage. Sorry. Clear my throat. Cage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Cage is great in this.
He's shredded in this as well. Like, we didn't mention that. He, obviously, we did The Rock last week. He's in okay shape, but he's not supposed to be an action star in that. In this, he is an action star, and he is cut to shred. You can see it in the way he walks. Like, his shoulders are massive. He's quite hulking in it. And I don't think he was ever this big again. He wasn't this big in Face Off or any of the subsequent films. No. It just felt that this film, he got in unbelievable shape.
He probably knew his arms were going to be on display for like 90% of the movie, so he had to...
Yeah, maybe. But it's not just that. He's got like this physicality to him in this film.
So Cage for my first one. I'm going to go 1.1 to move on, because Cage's hair.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's solid. Yeah. That's solid. I'm going to allow that bullshit 1.1.
Yeah. I'm with you, Mind. The premise of this film is it shouldn't work, but it does.
Well, that was the brilliance of like 90s action films. For the longest time it was Die Hard on a whatever, Die Hard on this, and then for the 90s, they really, and some people might describe it as like Die Hard on a bus for speed, but that's not the case. It's like 90s went really high concept it started with speed and got to stuff like Con Air. But the genius of this is taking that high concept 90s action film, but just adding tons of talent to it. It's like, what would this action movie be like if we just had loads and loads of really good actors? And do you know what it turns out? It's like, it's going to be fucking amazing. That's the answer. And so I don't think a 90s action film did it better than Con Air. Like, there might be better overall movies, and you can make the argument, is Rock a better movie than Con Air? Maybe. But in terms of like just putting all that talent up on screen, just to make what is a really silly film so much better and just fundamentally be believable is, mission accomplished.
And for me, I like the end chase sequence. I like that. I thought it was quite good, chasing them on the
Oh, like with
Right,
yeah, where it really does just be like, oh, listen, we've come this far. Let's just have the stick through the leg, the disappearing handcuffs, the rock machine. How can you not love that?
Yeah. And I'm going to add a fourth, right? Because we didn't mention him enough.
A
MC
1.1 and a 4. Jesus Christ.
MC Gainey is Swamp Thing.
Yeah, he is good.
I thought he was really good in it. Like when Dave Chappelle's just talking to him, goes, "So you're Swamp Thing. You're going to fly the plane? Yep. That's the transponder. Yep. It's amazing the shit you white trash know. Yep."
Oh yeah. There is something about the way he delivers that. Yeah, that last one is so oddly charming. Yeah. Again, if he survived, would you want to see a Chappelle Swamp Thing kind of like spin-off? I absolutely would.
It's a weird buddy cop or buddy criminal one, that, isn't it? But,
yeah, I just feel like they look like they got on. They look like they'd both be a lot of fun. He's already got that army helmet for no apparent reason. It's, again, a big issue is the fact that Chappelle is clearly dead in this film. But I would love to see that movie.
It's at the end as well. He's driving. Cusack is hitting fuck out of the top out of the metal with a fire axe. He's able to get through. And he's going, "You pull over." "Oh, yeah, sure. How was this?" he's enjoying life.
Does he survive something?
No, well, I don't know if he does. They fill the tank up. He fills the cab up with water, doesn't he? And then Swamp Thing crashes. Is he in there when?
I can't remember.
Oh.
I mean, like I said, the major issue to this kind of like planned spin-off is that Dave Chappelle is Pinball is definitely dead, which is a bit of a shame. So I'm not quite. If any series could get over it, I mean, maybe Con Air. I mean, they literally were talking about if they were going to do a sequel, would they go to space? But I feel like that's been played out now again, like Fast and Furious, I suppose. But I don't think we're going to get the Cusack, Malloy, or Pinball Swamp Thing spin-offs that I'm hoping for, sadly. Such a shame. Such a shame. In terms of hates, I mean, I mentioned Malloy is absurdly belligerent. As fun as he is, it's almost to the point of insanity by the end of the film. Like, how many things can you get wrong? Although, as I mentioned, not quite as much as the helicopter pilot, but, perhaps, as we mentioned, he knew best. He knew that plane had to go down lest all those people would get killed in Vegas. And it's only a throwaway line at the end. Like, Malloy comes over when they have their almost like, "Oh, we're likely to get on from now on." When they sit in the car and go, "Well, I did tell you to shoot the plane down." And it's like, oh yeah, all those people wouldn't have died. Never mind. Two, how much needs to go right for the Con Air plan to work? Mentioned it earlier. The plan is outrageously flawed. And three, the underdeveloped nature of the Sandino plot, which is both very important and oddly not important at all. So that was my big issue with the film.
Sure, we were kind of thinking along the same lines. For me, one was it was the same as the plan last week in The Rock as well. It's just it's absurd. Like, the plan in here is not clever. It's just like everything. It's a lot of luck in order for this plan to succeed.
100%. 100%. So much luck.
Yeah. So I wasn't a fan of the plan. The second one then as well was the whole Sandino thing just seemed a bit pointless.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's weird because it's important because the plot is kind of built around it, but it also feels completely like if you removed it, you wouldn't really care. Maybe it's the nature of the movie itself, but yeah, it's a bit of an odd one. And
for me, it was the other. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of Malloy as well, to be fair, but it was the other DEA agent. It was no reason for him. The only reason for that DEA agent was so they could have the character introductions at the beginning.
Yeah, and the real reason is just so they could get a gun on the plane. Like, that was it. A second gun, sorry. It was like, you didn't need, like, he was clearly underqualified. Like, the Malloy putting a gun on him was silly. And that whole sequence, it was just like, it was just kind of happening. It was just, again, I think it was just another reason to get a gun into a prisoner's hand as quickly as possible. But and Cameron Poe kind of gets him killed, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like, it does in that point feel like he is working for Cyrus the Virus. But the rest of the film, you're like, I'm not sure if Cyrus should really be trusting Cameron Poe. He's clearly up to something. But in that sequence, you're like, oh, no, he gets that DE agent killed for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to add a fourth as well, right? The pointlessness. Yeah, no.
So you don't want a 3.1 first?
No. We're going the pointlessness of Baby-O.
Yeah, did he play Bubba Gump?
Yeah, that was Bubba Gump.
Yeah, he played. Yeah. Again, I think he's there just to have somebody to bounce off. Yeah. But the fact that he's even on the plane with Nicolas Cage in and of itself makes no sense. But then it is a thankless task, like you said. Can you just sit here and sweat for 2 hours? That's all. He doesn't even have his hero moments.
How nice are they in the prison? Because we didn't even mention this. He's doing his his narration at the beginning, the bit you loved, and you go, those pink coconut things make me popular. I met a guy just the other day, baby, oh sure does love them. Next thing you know, they're cellmates. They're leaving together.
Yeah, yeah.
So did the warden go, oh, you two shared some weird pink coconut treats?
Oh, you're the pink coconut guys. Oh, you can both get on the plane.
Yes,
like it'll be
you
fine.
can both go in.
Dude, I've got 7 years left on my sentence. Nah, fuck it, you two are buddies. I'm not splitting you two up. There's no way we're splitting a baby on camera boat. You guys get the fuck out of here. Go, just go.
But I'm assuming they became cellmates as well.
Yeah, 100% they did.
So random.
So they became cellmates. They became plane mates, all because of their little pink puff things. Yeah. Very strange.
Yeah.
Are there any alternate titles for this film? Surely not. And it's a perfect title, Con Air. Like, you know, what came first? Was it just like Con Air? Wait, Con Air. We should totally make. I thought that was how it happened.
Yeah.
I thought it was like Aircon, Con Air. Oh, I've got it. But the fact that Con Air exists in the real world kind of ruined it for me, because I thought it was just one of those, like, he's just done his 7th rail on a Monday afternoon, absolutely smashing the cocaine. He's like, oh, that aircon's really blowing aircon, Con Air, Nicolas Cage, I've got it, and he just runs out the room. They're making the film the next day. That's how I wanted to believe it got made, but sadly not the case.
Boy howdy are there some alternate titles.
Are they really?
To the fact that there's got to be the most alternate titles we've ever had.
What? To Con Air?
We have 17 alternate titles.
I thought this was going to be one of those ones where you had, like, Con Air hyphen, like in, I don't know, fucking Cuba, there was like Con Air prison plane. One of those, like...
I've got a couple of them. I'll do that.
So you got the usual kind of, like, pointless synonyms where it's basically just hyphen the same thing, but run through the synonym machine.
So I'll do them ones first, then I'll go on to the actual alternates, right? So Argentina, Con Air, Risk in the Air.
Yeah, late. This is what I thought we were going to get.
Yeah. Brazil, Con Air, Broken Vanishing.
What the fuck? No. Okay. You swing and a miss there, Argentina. Jesus Christ.
Finland, Con Air, Flight to Freedom.
It's better than Argentina, but still not great.
Hungary. And this is in case you didn't know what Con Air meant, okay? Hungary. Con Air, the prisoner flight.
See, that's the synonym thing. That's the way it's completely superfluous. They're just repeating the title with different words.
Poland, again, on the same boat. Con Air, Flight of Convicts.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Yeah. How many times are we going to do this? Con Air, prisoner plane. It's like, what the fuck?
Right. And now we got the alternate titles.
Okay, here we go.
Bulgaria, Air Convoy.
That's really bad. That could be it. That could be something about a mailman. That's garbage.
The French-Canadian title, Air Convicts.
Again, fine, but what Con Air is perfect already.
Mate, you're not going to like any of these.
No, I'm not.
Prison Express.
The problem is, I don't even necessarily hate them in themselves. They just seem pointless because they're taking a perfect title and forcing a change, which is, again, it must be a language thing where it just doesn't make sense to say Convict Air. Like, that's got to be the problem.
France, The Wings of Hell.
That sounds like a 1952 war movie.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly where I thought. It is definitely
it really does.
A World War II air squadron movie, isn't it?
100%. These truly were the wings of hell. It's just one of those fucking things.
Greece, Escape in the Air.
That's one of the better ones. At least they're kind of shifting away from Con Air, I suppose.
Yeah. Latvia, Flight of Prisoners.
Fantastic. I can't believe that there are so many.
Lithuania, Prisoner Plane.
So there's so many of these. This has to be the fact that in other languages, Con Air just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It has to be that. It has to be.
Just a couple more for you. Romania, The Plane of the Convicts.
It makes it sound a little bit more grand, doesn't it? Yeah. It's like if Shakespeare had written Con Air, that's what you'd end up with.
Russia, Air Prison.
Yeah. Okay. Con Air clearly doesn't work in other languages. I get it.
Serbia, Flying Dungeon.
Flying Dungeon? Okay, that sounds like a fantasy film, but sure.
Vietnam, Hijack.
That sounds like a mid-90s John Travolta film. Straight to DVD, potentially. No. 97. John Travolta, limited cinematic release. That's what I'm going to give Hijack.
I'm assuming that Slovenia thought this was a zombie film. Plane of the Damned.
Yeah, totally sounds like a horror film.
Yeah.
High concept B movie, perhaps.
Yeah.
Not the film we watched, that's for sure. Never mind. That's it. Well,
titles.
I'm sure you have some facts. I mean, we have already covered some of the facts for this film. The fact that it was based on a true story, the fact that Nic Cage went down to Alabama to learn the accent, all that stuff. John Cusack and John Malkovich just not liking this film. But do you have any others?
I do, yeah. So the film is dedicated to Phil Swartz, an effects specialist who died during filming when a rigged plane fell and crushed him.
It was the lunar airfield sequence, I think, when they flew through
you already said that the Las Vegas scenes were filmed at a hotel that was immediately about to be demolished. It was the legendary Sands Hotel.
I don't think they made enough of it, because you think about like the equivalent, like I always think like the best example of blowing up a building which was due to be blown up, is The Dark Knight. The bit with the Joker when he walks out and he does the button and stuff, and you see it blow up behind him. That you really get, it's like, oh, they fucking blew that building up. This one with the hotel, I think it kind of gets lost a little bit in the melee, which is a bit of a shame. I think it's one of those that should have had like 100 cameras on it. It should have been, repeated numerous times, but it just kind of happens, which is a bit of a shame.
Which one do I have here? The sight of the plane flying in low formation over the strip during filming caused a number of Las Vegans to call the police.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Yeah. It was released in June 1997, the same month as Face Off.
Yeah, that's crazy. That they came out
a few weeks later.
And they were both massive hits as well. It's not quite Teen Wolf and Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox, but it's not fucking far off.
No. The films were shot consecutively from the summer of 96 to spring 97, with the two productions nearly overlapping at one point.
Just Nicolas Cage going just right from The Rock, right into Con Air, right into Face Off. Just slaying. Yeah. Slaying.
According to Danny Trejo, there was a lot of tough guy competition on set.
No, I bet.
For example, when one guy would spit on the floor, the others would immediately imitate it and try to spit even further.
I can imagine it'd be like the less tough guy, but it always feels a little more gross because the people on board than say, like, when I think of like the ultimate macho movie, I think of like Predator, and supposedly they had all those, but they were in the jungle and those guys were all absolute monsters.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, you're like, I bet you it was just a little bit nastier.
Yeah.
Totally.
So the film, as we've already said, the film in France is called The Wings of Hell because con in French is a slang word for dumb people.
Oh, well, there we go. Yeah. There we go. It just doesn't work.
MC Gainey revealed that his role as Swamp Thing is his personal favourite. I can understand why.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Willem Dafoe and Mickey Rourke auditioned for the part of Cyrus. During Rourke's audition, he improvised by producing razor-sharp Bowie knife, both terrifying and impressing the director. Though suitably impressed, they decided to cast John Malkovich instead. Completely
Which I think is the right choice.
You've got Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can't see this film with anyone but John Malkovich. He's, regardless of whether he likes it or not, he's absolutely amazing in this film. Because you need to believe him as not only as a psycho, but to believe him as being intelligent. Like, that's the whole point as well. He's a nutcase, but he's very self-aware. He's clearly intelligent. And you absolutely buy that with Malkovich. Yeah. You buy him as a psycho. You buy him as being a borderline genius. That you buy him as like the leader of men as well, which he is. Like, you got all these psychos. Everyone just listens to Cyrus.
Yeah.
And they hint at the whole Diamond Dog thing, like he's going to turn him. You never really buy into that because you're like, Cyrus is in charge, and a big part of that is the performance of Malkovich for sure.
Yeah. Jason Isaacs revealed an awkward story in an interview about when he tried out for the role of Cyrus the Virus. His audition involved performing a scene with a handgun, so he said he'd use a nearby pencil as a prop. But then the camera assistant offered him a real gun he had tucked under his shirt in his belt. Isaac said the voice shot up 3 octaves and went all Jerry Lewis, saying, "Oh my God, it's a real gun." He said director Simon West was as wide-eyed as he was. He'd been working with the assistant for a while and no idea he had a gun.
Yeah, I mean, even in America, it's still going to be a bit of a surprise if you're in an audition and somebody just pulls a live firearm. Like, oh shit, it's going to be that kind of shoot, is it? All right, fair enough.
The US Marshals who run the actual Con Air program wanted nothing to do with the movie. We watch tons of this, mate. We ain't fucking with this film.
I bet. I can see why they might want to not get involved there.
Yeah. Do you impressed with the film? Malkovich was asked why he did the film. He just gave a simple one-word answer: money.
Yeah, makes sense. But he was still great, so it was fine. He did. And that's the thing. Regardless of whether he hates it or not, it never feels like he phoned in this performance. Everybody in this film feels 100% committed.
What else have I got here? Anything else? We got loads for who were considered for Cyrus. Gary Oldman was the first choice to play Cyrus.
That's a great shout.
Kevin Bacon, Alec Baldwin, George Clooney, Robert De Niro, Michael Douglas, Richard Dreyfuss, James Gandolfini, Ed Harris.
The first one's the best one.
Rutger Hauer, William Hurt, Michael Keaton, Michael Madsen, Jack Nicholson, Sean
Keaton would be good.
Tim Robbins, Tom Sizemore, John Travolta, Peter Weller, Bruce Willis.
That is a lot, but the only one I would take serious is the first one, for sure.
I would have watched. I mean, I watched it.
Gary Oldman would give the character the exact same vibe. Like, if you had the exact same performance, same lines, everything, but you remove Malkovich and you put Gary, like a lot of those guys, you put them in, it's a different movie, it's a different vibe, it's a different performance. Whereas Gary Oldman, as I said, that importance of being threatening, but also believably intelligent leader of men, Gary Oldman would totally pull that off. And, he's done that a few times. He did it in Leon. He did it in, what was the fucking awesome Air Force One, another film we should totally do on this podcast. He has that kind of similar vibe. So he seems like a genuinely solid alternative to Malkovich, but he's the only one really on that list that I'd like to see. Even if it would be largely the same, I think. I
really like Cage in this film, but I definitely would have watched it if Patrick Swayze was Cameron Poe.
Swayze is so the obvious alternative. He has got that kind of like Roadhouse vibe, and he could just keep the same accent. He could basically just take Roadhouse and just put him in this film, and it would work. He's basically the same fucking character.
Yeah.
So
right. Yeah. I'll give you
one more. Two more. Fair enough.
One draft of the script had the plane crashing into the White House. Producer Jerry Bruckheimer didn't quite believe that and thought the guys really would rather crash into Las Vegas instead. And
plus, they'd just done it with Independence Day. That's the problem. If you're going to crash into the White House, this is 3 years after Independence Day, and what was at the time probably still the most impressive special effects sequence of all time. Certainly one of the most memorable. And you're not going to top the White House getting destroyed in Independence Day. You're just not going to do that in the mid-90s. So it makes sense that they steered well clear of that.
It's ironic that you mentioned Air Force One. Malkovich turned down the lead role in Air Force One to do this film.
Unbelievable. Like I said, those two are completely interchangeable in terms of that kind of villainous role.
Yeah.
They're the guys. Yeah. And that is the thing. You can imagine Malkovich in Gary Oldman's role in Air Force One. You're like, it's the same film. It's just as good. A couple of different kind of twists and tweaks to the performance, but largely the same kind of vibe. 100%.
Yeah, that's it. We'll end it there because we've had more to go, so I'll end it there. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of legacy, we already mentioned a whole bunch of them. This place in the part of one of the greatest action movie trilogies of all time. Certainly in terms of a run of 3 back-to-back movies, this is up there with the best of them. The fact that Simon West wanted to make a sequel set in space, I mentioned at the top of the podcast, its place amongst the finest directorial debuts of all time. I don't think I'm playing that up. As I said, there are better movies. But when you think of like I said, Tarantino doing Reservoir Dogs, that's a better movie than Con Air. But it makes sense that would come from a first-time director because it's a smaller film. It's the fact that this is Con fucking Air. Who the hell is just handed the reins to a modern day equivalent? This would have cost like 200 million in today's money to make this with all the biggest stars in the world. Absolutely insane. And the fact that, as I said, I really thought this could do with a Fast and Furious crossover. We're not going to get it because I think, again, I don't want to see Nicolas Cage playing Cameron Poe in his 60s, but this would have worked as a Fast and Furious crossover. In terms of the lineage and the tone of this movie, that's the closest thing to it in modern day. But like I said, they only had it for a while and one of the reasons I'm glad there wasn't a sequel is because they pushed it so far with this film.
Yeah.
And you go on that journey right up to the ludicrous death of Cyrus the Virus. Once you start the second film, you've got to start amping it up again, and it quickly becomes too silly for its own good. So I'm glad it started and ended where it did. In terms of the score and soundtrack, amazingly, How Do I Live Without You, nominated for both an Oscar and a Razzie, but not sung by Leanne Rimes. It's like, what the fuck? I just like, that's a Leanne Rimes song. Her version came later. This version is by Trisha Yearwood, which I was like, I would have bet every penny I had that this was Leanne Rimes.
Well, I mean, that's weird because what I found, the theme song, How Do I Live, was originally performed by 14-year-old Leanne Rimes.
I've got it here. It was sung by Trisha Yearwood, the version that was used in the film, where she sung
maybe
the song that was
sung. So she sung it. Leanne Rimes.
She sung it, but it wasn't for the version that was used in the film. Yeah, so absolutely insane. The song was composed by Diane Warren, who also composed "I Don't Want to Miss a Thing" and "Can't Fight the Moonlight" from Coyote Ugly. So she obviously had a kind of vibe, but a very fucking successful one. I mean, Jesus Christ, they're some of the most memorable movie songs from the 90s. And was Coyote Ugly 2000s?
99, 2000, yeah.
Yeah, it was right on the border, wasn't it? Other than that, though, everything else sounds like an 80s action movie. As I said, especially post-theme tune, which really does sound like Top Gun. It's by Mark Mancina, who also did Speed, brilliant, Speed 2, not so brilliant, and Bad Boys, depends on who you ask. It depends on whether you ask me or you, apparently. But yeah, he's got a pretty good track record all the same. In terms of video games, there wasn't an actual video game based on the movie, but if I was going to do one today, I would have Ben Studios of Days Gone fame. I know you're a fan of that game as well.
Yeah.
Make Con Air 2, in which Sandino's family comes to take vengeance on Poe's family in a small town in Alabama. So he has to go out on his bike and take out the Mexican cartel who have taken over the town by bribing the mayor and taking down all communications. So basically, I'm just going with Days Gone, moving it to Alabama and replacing zombies with Mexican cartel guys. That's my plan.
You're doing like an unofficial video game sequel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't think you can turn this movie directly into a video game, and I don't think I want to relive it because it can't get any more silly than it already is on the screen. So I'd like to do the ongoing stories of Cameron Poe, but do it in video game where I think his character belongs, basically.
Well, I don't think there'll be an official winner because I like that idea as well. But I'm sorry, mate. I would redo the game and I would do it Naughty Dog style. If you think of Uncharted 3 with the plane. And the plane crashing, you had the plane stuff. Yeah,
but the problem is that's a set piece rather than a whole game. If you see what I mean, you can't have a whole game on a plane.
No, but you've got the different set. They land, don't they? They land. They're in the boneyard. You've got the bone. So I honestly think that, and it's video game. You can make that plane 9,000 feet long to travel.
Yeah, there is that, and like I said, in terms of This movie is a collection of set pieces. That does suit Naughty Dog as well. I think it was just because I wanted to see a follow-up. And I was like, well, you're not going to see it on screen. So maybe, if you bring in Nicolas Cage to do the voice work.
I totally agree. I think that's a great idea.
Whatever the case, it's going to end up on a PlayStation platform, apparently. So that's the way it's going.
Yeah.
So in terms of scores and recommendations, for me, very similar to last week. 4 stars, very easy to recommend. I think, as I mentioned, this film's aged beautifully. It does, there are very few things that give away that this was made in 1997 other than John Cusack's clothes. I'm watching it on Blu-ray now. It's for a guy where it was his first movie, absolutely insane. It does feel like a Michael Bay homage at times, but if anything, it's Michael Bay without too much Michael Bay. It never kind of tips over. So I actually find it more watchable, but yeah, super easy to recommend. Great cast, great performances, great action set pieces, 4 stars. I still can't decide whether it's better than The Rock or not. I'm thinking maybe not quite, but it's close. It's close.
I mean, what we're gonna have to decide which is I guess the rank for this when we watch all 3 of them. But I would give it a 4-star. It's not. This is
gonna be interesting. I've got a funny feeling, and just be clear, I'm not sure because I've not rewatched Face Off yet, and that's giving away what we're doing next week. By the way, next week we're doing Face Off. In case it's not already obvious, it feels like we mentioned it 1,000 times.
Once again, you totally just fucked the joke for me.
Oh, sorry, dude. Sorry, but no.
Usually, what are we watching? I was going to say 1987's Moonstruck. Just the fuck.
Oh, sorry, man. Sorry. Hey, we can all just imagine the joke. Oh yeah, that was good. It's fine.
Stop talking.
my point is, it's like I've got a funny feeling that we're both going to give all 3 movies 4 stars, and that we're going to then have to decide which is the best 4-star movie.
That's when we gotta go back and go, right, one of them's 4.5, one of them's 4.2.
I think we're going to have to. I think we're going to have to go to a 10-point scale when we're going back and comparing these films because
I
really think,
it's a 4-star movie. And yeah, of course I would recommend it. It's a good, decent little action film.
Yeah. So understanding it, a good, decent little action film. It's absolutely not a little action film. It's one of the biggest action films.
Well, I mean, it's good. I really enjoy it. I like watching it. I'll watch it again. I like Nicolas Cage in it. Nicolas Cage is a hit and miss actor, obviously, but
when he hits, though, that's always my argument with Nicolas Cage, is that you get a lot of actors nowadays, they're always running at like 7 out of 10, constantly 7 out of 10. Everything's fine. Nicolas Cage, you can really get a 2 out of 10 out of Nicolas Cage. But when he has got the right material and he's engaged and he is all in, man, he is as good as anyone. And he absolutely, as much as anyone else in this film, totally elevates the material. He's so good in this film. And there are so few actors that can pull off what he does. When he's like, oh no, I'm going all in with the accent, the good old boy thing, like he totally pulls off. A lot of people, it would be a disaster if they tried to do what Nicolas Cage does in this film. But yeah, he absolutely knocks out the park. But yeah, so anyway, this has been Con Air. So similar to last week, 4 stars, easy to recommend. Yep. Do join us, surely, if you've come this far, you'll join us for Face Off next week, where, you know, we've already spent a lot of time talking about how silly this film is. And we haven't even got to Face Off yet, the silliest of all the movies.
Well, I mean, there's a difference, isn't there? Silly, ludicrous, I think is...
Yeah, but I don't... That's the thing. That's another thing we can do at the end of next week's podcast. We can rate in what order are these? Like, what's the best? Rock, Con Air, Face Off. But then also, what's the silliest? And again, that's going to be an interesting conversation because they're all pretty high on the silly scale.
Yeah.
As to which one's the dumbest, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be Con Air or Face Off, but I'm going to watch Con Air later in the week and we can talk about it then. So thank you for joining us for Con Air. Please do join us next week for Face Off. And yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Tune in next week to see which joke Liam's going to step on next week for me.
Sorry, man. Sorry, dude. Every week, man. I feel like I've got to do it now just to keep up the run.
You know, we don't even plan these things. Oh, this joke, this joke. I keep...
I just go out of my way to fuck your jokes up. Sorry, dude.
Too right. I go out of my way to fuck your favourite films up. So it's fine.
Well, there you go.
Cheers,
We're
guys.
even.
We'll see you next week. Where the fuck is that button? This is always the uncomfortable moment where you're just staring at me while I look for the stop button.
Find the goddamn stop button. Oh, and before we forget, here is Rob with all the finer details. Got to get through those, dude.
Yeah, so basically you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at HeyYouGuys80s. We're also on email at HeyYouGuys80s@gmail.com. Please feel free to drop us any recommendations, any corrections or omissions we may have missed from any of the films that we've covered. Just get them in. And also, if you could, please leave us some 5-star reviews. That would really help us. And we'd like to thank, as always, Darry Fletcher at Darry Doodles for the fantastic artwork that we're now producing. Thanks for that, mate.
Cheers, Darry.
Yeah. And thanks again for listening, and we will see you next week.
Cheers. Bye.
Hey, you go!